Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, availability questions concerning this watch. So today we're discussing a model launched in 1992 and made in 1,000 pieces, as you see it here in white gold, the Patek Philippe Calatrava 5000G. So this is a model that began a long and successful line of similar timepieces, drawing on automotive inspiration for its dial imagery and sporting an incredibly strong set of thrusting lugs. It's a design that's had legs. So the original 1992 1,000-piece white gold edition is what you see right here. It evolved in the middle of the 2000s into the 6000. That became the 6006, and that evolved into the 6007, which is still with us today, with the case design being the unifying feature of all variants within the lineage. So you can see this watch is very much of an early 1990s persuasion, at least in terms of size. Sometimes it's described as a 33, sometimes it's described as a 34. I measured it. I get 33.5, so maybe everyone's right or everyone's wrong. It is thin. It's 7.9 millimeters thick thanks to a micro rotor automatic, and from lug to lug, only 41.8 millimeters with a 19 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference and wears nicely. Because the lugs are so broad and flat, the watch and every variant of this continuity has always worn large. So this wears more like a 36. So if you're familiar with a 36 round watch, maybe a date just on a strap, consider this watch to be that size. It'll still wear on a wrist of 13.5 centimeters circumference, especially as the strap softens up. So ladies, this is definitely one for you. It's equally valid and looks great on male or female wrist, especially with the white metal case and the black dial. The thrusting, angular, nearly flat Broncard-like lugs, it has a lot of visual punch. It is thin, and it will slip underneath the dress cuff. You can see the bezel is almost flat. Things were done differently in the early 90s. You could see that the guild mark demonstrating which guild actually made this case, because Patek was not making these cases back then. But you can see the guild mark, the little key with the number being indicative of which member of the guild made the case, but there it is right there. And then if we roll over to the case back, you can see under the lug, we have those pre-August 1st, 1995 hallmarks. August 1st, 1995, Swiss hallmark switched over to a little diamond with a St. Bernard's head. This is the woman's head, and the G indicating that the case was made in Geneva. So the watch features very strong lug profiles, and you can see how they're integrated and blended. There's no step here. The lugs in the case band are one and the same. We also have a little bit of a wrap around. You can see that the case band wraps around the end of the lug, and then we have the Calatrava cross on the crown. It is the logo of the company. We have a strap of large and medium scale alligator leather, matte black. There is some bolstering to give it a little bit of volume, a monotone stitch, a sheer cut edge that's been lacquered for refinement on the bottom, calfskin lining, no crimping, no gouging, brand new Patek factory strap, pull tab spring bars, the latest Patek strap setups. You can pop the strap off without tools. We have a matching white gold Patek Philippe folding clasp. And you can see back in the early 1990s that Patek's take on white gold was very traditional. You don't see this too often today. But whereas the case uses a white gold that is rhodium plated, the clasp does not have the rhodium plate, so you can actually see white gold in its natural state. It's a very, very pale yellow. It's warmer than rhodium or platinum. So it's an interesting thing to see. That you can see the buckle is rhodium plated, so it's a little bit lighter. It has the Calatrava cross, and then we have a friction fit snap shut setup. Rolling back to the watch itself, we have that super shallow bezel, and then we have a dial of black with radially arrayed Arabic numerals and a sort of piano key center. So we have white hands on black, a matte black base, and small seconds. Porsche, Mercedes-Benz, Jaguar, the inspirations are many, typically 1950s references. That is what most believe served as the inspiration basis for the design of these watches. And over the years, particularly as the 6000 arrived in the mid-2000s, the evolution in the direction of automotive imagery became more and more overt, but that's where the original inspiration for this dial likely came from. And it looks great. It's unlike any other Calatrava. One of the reasons being it has a movement that's very rarely featured on any basic three-hand Patek Philippe watch. In general, Calatravas that have no high complications and automatic winding use a center rotor automatic. But this series, until the 6007, used the 240 micro rotor, which is something you expect to see on prestige models and high-end complications. And because a micro rotor puts the winding system and the rotor in the same plane as the rest of the drivetrain, you have a watch that is super thin. This wouldn't have been possible with a 335 or a 315. So we've got a 22-karat micro rotor. It energizes a 48-hour power reserve. We've got a 3 hertz beat rate, Geneva hallmark, so the standard of finish, past that high bar. It's a free-sprung Gyromax style balance, so you can see that all the adjustments to timing are using those eccentric masses on the rim of the balance. That makes it more shock resistant, but also easier to adjust precisely. And of course here we have Patek using KIF shock protection rather than the more common Inca block. It's a 27 joule movement and it's adjusted to 5 positions, which is the standard along with the temperatures for a watch that's either high horology, a chronometer, or both. You can see engine turning in 2 sizes on the base plate. You can see bright anglage on the edge of the bridges, though interesting to me, particularly if you look at this angle, you could see the basic milling marks before the final finishing pass, as in the era when display casebacks were still uncommon. It wasn't considered necessary or even important to mirror polish rounded bevels. It was important to round and clean the machined edge by hand, but it didn't have to be mirrored. As a result, you can still see a little bit of the milling marks on Patek movements from this era and really up until the mid-2000s. And then we've got polish in all of the jewel and screw sinks with the screw heads polished and their slots and circumference chamfered, satination on the wheels, striping on the 22-karat mass, and then you can see the locating pegs that help to place the balance cock on the base plate. Those have been polished on their top, and all this courtesy of a screwed-in caseback is 30 meters water resistant. A very cool movement and a very cool watch, and an uncommon and influential one. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.